Alright, so I did a bunch of work last weekend and got, a lot of footage of it, made a lot of progress, and somehow have lost all of it. So, let me bring you up to speed as to where I left off last weekend. So we got the motor completely assembled and back into the frame. I had a nice video on how to do, the valve installation, camshaft stuff, how to do the shimming and the process on, making sure you measure your shims, don't trust the numbers on the shim, and going back and forth till they were perfect. There was a pretty good video. Cleaned up the coil, put some dielectric grease in there, help get make sure water doesn't get in there. It was a pretty good video. But here we are. It's mounted in the frame. I've got the frame mounts loose because we still have to get the swing arm in there. And if you tighten all that stuff down, chances of this being aligned perfectly to get your swing arm in there is probably nothing. So all those are loose, and we're waiting on the swing arm to get put in there. And then I started working on the swing arm, and I got it all cleaned up. It was pretty dirty. It's not terrible, but it was pretty dirty. So I spent some time with some Scotch Brite, some Goo Gone, and some Simple Green, and had a nice little video of cleaning that up and different materials to use, where and why. But anyway, that's all cleaned up. I got one of the chain adjusters out and chased the threads, put the new one in. I'm going to do that with this one. I'll have that on video. And then we'll finish cleaning up this swing arm. We'll pull the seals and the caps off of the bearings on the swing arm, and we'll check out the needle bearings and see how those bushings look in there. And then we'll move on to the rest of the linkage, and we'll do the same. We'll pull these caps out, check the seals, and check the bearings, make sure none of the needles are toast. And then we can start assembly. This is the new old chain guide. We're going to use this instead of the TM Design one that came on it. Although this is a nice piece, it's very thick. You can see the difference there in thickness between the OEM one and the TM Designs. This is just going to allow you a little bit more clearance to get your wheel in and out. Supermoto wheels are a lot wider than a dirt bike wheel. So the OEM one's good. And then I went down to the hardware store, and I got some new bolts to use because I do a little modification. Can't remember where I picked up on that before. It might have been like an old issue of SMR magazine, like 10 plus years ago. But basically you take the bolts out of your stock ones there, and then you use these with a tapered head, and you bevel out the holes on this side, and you were going to flip the way the bolts go through. They normally would get bolted in this way, but we're going to flip them this way so the head's flush with this, and we're going to put the nuts on the front side of it. That'll give you a little extra clearance, especially if you're running like a 5.5 inch wheel. You definitely want that. It's tight enough as it is with a 5 inch. So that'll be a nice little trick. I'll show you that. So I'm going to get situated, cleaned up, and we'll get going on this. Alright, so I'm going to work on this chain adjuster. So I'm going to take these red anodized bolts that come in your bolt kit. They're not just cool red anodized bolts. They're used to chase threads. So it's got this little cut in here. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on that, and I'm going to send it down the threads. And the grease will trap anything that's going to come out. So take that. Run that through. Okay, that wasn't terrible, but the threads are nice and clean now. Take a little bit of brake cleaner, clean them out. Then we're going to take our new chain adjuster and put a little anti-seize on there. Thread this in. thread that in. Now we got some new chain adjusters in there. Alright. So now let's take a look at what we have for swing arm bearings going on. Spacer out. Take our bushing out, which is this looks hopeful. This is pretty clean. Take a look at this bearing. Everything looks pretty good in there. Alright, these seals look pretty decent. They're not worn out. There's no chunks taken out of them. So I'm just going to clean these up. We'll run a rag down through there and we'll put some, we'll repack it with some new grease. Take and wipe down our bushing. No nicks or burrs. No ridges. Looks good. Put that back in. Take our spacer, clean that up. Press that back in. Alright, we'll do the same thing to this side. Swing arm bearing looks good. Okay. Alright, so we'll take this one apart here. We'll take the spacer out. Push this side through. Okay, take the bushing out. Okay. Inspect our needles. They all look good. The bearings on this must have been done at some point close in time here, because the swing arm bearings look good and these all look good too. We'll just run a rag through, clean them up, and we'll put some fresh grease in there and we'll call that good. That's good news for me. Alright, so here's an instance where one of the needles fell out. Just push it back in there, make sure it's seated, give it a spin. Good to go. Now, if these were less clean than they are now, and I had a feeling that they might be bad, you can pull all the needles out, and I've done that before on my bikes, and just soak them, clean them up, and try to restore them, or you can just buy new bearings and press them in. Like I said, these ones look good, so we're just going to put some new grease in there and call that good. You know, that's not to say that the other ones don't need some attention, but this one seems to be good, so we'll put some fresh grease in there and we'll wrap that up. You want to look for any abnormal wear on the bushing that goes in there, but there's nothing there. You know, you could get some scoring from a dry bearing, but like I said, these things look good, so we're just going to be able to reuse everything.
Set up, you know, for one, like the rhythm lane that you're watching right here, you need really stiff supercross suspension for that. But then you hit the triple, and your plane comes around, and halfway through the 450 main, it is going to be beat up. So I remember leaving that year thinking, all right, better.
Okay, we'll inspect that bushing, and again, looks perfect, looks good. This is good news because I'd like to get moving on this, and running out of time here. Getting close to race season, I got to get my own stuff going too.
Yeah, that was a really interesting night. To win my heat race, you know, it was the first heat win here.
Alright, I'm going to use this one to show you what I would do if these bearings were toast, or not if they were toast, but if they needed to be cleaned up. So I'm going to take this ratio right, and this is what I'm going to put my needles into. This one there, this one there. Take our needles and just peel them out. Okay, cleaner. Get it in there. Let those soak for a little bit. Take a rag, clean out the inside. So that's all clean now. Take our bushing, clean our bushing up. Inspect our seals. If you need new seals, go ahead and replace those. These look good. Okay, this is your outer cap. Clean this up, get the old grease off it. I'll throw that actually right in with the bearings. Okay, now these have been soaking for a little while, so I'm going to drain them out of there. Dump these out. Just give them a wipe down. Now everything's clean. We're going to start our assembly. So we're going to start by putting some fresh grease inside of here. Just have something for these needles to stick to as you put them in. I'm going to take my magnet, my pick, and just rub the tip of this on there a little bit, just to magnetize the tool a little bit. Then we'll take the needles and start laying them in there, one by one.
Short-term memory, and it's really hard in this sport, but it can all change with a good start. You know, as much as anybody, your whole, it's pretty funny. I was gonna say, you got a young kid like
okay.
Mumford, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna bounce back.
And then you get your last one, put it in and just press down, it'll find a hole. There you go. Okay, now they're all in there. So we'll finish the assembly. Get our grease, a little bit more grease. Grease is your friend here. Slide our bushing in. Take our spacers and our seal. A little bit of grease. A little bit of grease. Press that on there. Go ahead and press that into the dog bone here. Okay. Over to the other side. A little bit of grease. Okay. Make sure that's nice and flush with the part here, so you don't get snagged on anything. And that's that. All of them are cleaned up and re-greased now. So I'll just finish cleaning up the surface here on the aluminum, and this part will be done.
How does he approach a series like this when you don't have the opening round? This is your opening round. Does he come in here trying to set the world on fire, or does he practice? He came out firing, he came out first, doing all the rhythm sections right away, which you always like to see. So I think you get with the team and you kind of reassess, which I'm sure a guy like Tyler Keefe, the team manager, to be tempered too. He keeps head straight. He's very cool, kind of low key.
All right, that part's all cleaned up and ready to go. Okay, now we'll take the spacers and check the bearings on this dog bone here. Again, this one looks great, so we're just going to clean up the old grease. We'll clean up the part itself, put some new grease in there, assemble it back up. This will be ready to put on the swing arm.
Just like you said, that short-term memory, and looks like he's noticed the aggression, how he's riding, throwing it around a little bit more. That tells you he's comfortable, right?
For sure, yeah, that tells the tale right there. He's feeling really good. And,
another rider who
Check your bushing for inside there, make sure it doesn't have any mixed bars or abnormal wear, and that thing's good. Clean up our end caps, bushing end caps.
But his results on paper,
Get back in.
He actually looked really good in Orlando. It just didn't work out for him. I know I've been watching the Instagram. He's been riding with Chase Sexton a bunch, so he's in good company. You know how important it is to ride with good people.
for sure, yeah, that's everything. I mean, if he can even get close to Chase's times during the week, that'll bring a bunch of confidence, you know. Yeah,
Clean up the excess
that's
grease.
solid. And I wonder if it,
Okay, that part's ready to go. Okay, all that looks good. So we're going to pull the rubber piece out of the guide, clean this up, and then go ahead and bevel out the backside to accept our new hardware we're going to use. Okay, get that pretty well cleaned up. Go ahead and bevel these out. You see how that's going to work. Nice smooth surface. Nothing to really catch your wheel on when you're trying to put your wheel in. Taking a look. Okay, perfect. Looks great. And the way this is going to work now is that will get mounted onto there using these new screws. Okay, then I got these nylock nuts for the backside. Let's go ahead and put a Phillips head on the back. Tighten those down. I'm good to go. And you can see there's a nice smooth surface in here now instead of having that sticking out on this side. There's a little tip for you. Alright, so we'll go ahead and put some of these parts back on the swing arm. So we'll start off with this piece here. And find the bolt for that. Put a little bit of grease on it. The grease just keeps it from seizing up. It doesn't ride on this, it rides on the bearings, so don't go too crazy with the grease. There we go. And this is going to be torqued to 39 foot-pounds, as well as I think the rest of them are 39 foot-pounds. I'll double check before I do that.
My goal would be to be back in Atlanta. I'm just going to play it by ear. Obviously,
It's on there.
completely my fault. I just came out of that.
Just to make sure. Sneak this through.
I rushed it. I rushed it coming out.
Put a washer on. Okay. Make sure everything moves around freely. And it does. Okay, so we take our swing arm, freshly serviced.
Hey, if I can be the fastest, I'll beat it, but I don't think the race ready because it was that an approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all about
Slide this in here. We left the mounts loose, so this should be pretty easy. Got our pivot bolt all cleaned up, fresh grease on it. Slide that through.
For Webb, back-to-back winners in Orlando.
Okay, that's all the way through. Bolt, another bolt for the linkage, the one that's got your chain roller on it, cleaned up, ready to go.
And all of a sudden, he turned off the switch, and I saw a big change at the last Indianapolis race. Is that what you saw as
Put
well?
that through.
Yeah, I think, you know, like he had mentioned before, the KTM guys, what can beat you all this, but when you get out there, and you see, you know, these guys that have been for a long time.
Alright, so now I got my swing arm on. I'm going to go ahead and start bolting down the motor mounts. I'm going to start with the least amount of torque necessary, so it would be, I believe these ones are like 19 foot-pounds. And then I'll work my way down to the very last one, which is the swing arm one at 65 foot-pounds. So I'll start here, and I'll come down to here, hit this one, and then we'll hit this one, and this one. Swing arm is on, all the linkage is torqued down, everything's rebuilt, everything still moves smoothly, and it looks good. This thing looks like a brand new bike. Man, whoever buys this bike is going to love this. Alright, next I'm going to work on the triple trees. The bearings look good, so we don't have to replace any of those, but I'm just going to clean them up a little bit, and then install them back on the bike and make sure everything's torqued down. Alright, these are the stock Honda triples. Especially for Supermoto, stock is not really what you want. I had a stock 07, I think I've talked about it before. It had stock triples on it. It was completely stock. Stock exhaust, stock motor, stock triples, stock suspension. And I got down to the 20s on it, just like that. And Tyler Sweeney actually, I gave it to him for a race weekend, and he got down into the low 18s, I think, on a completely stock bike with stock triples, chasing around Trevor Peasy, which there's a good video also on my YouTube channel of that exact race. But if it was me, I have on my 07, I've got 8mm triples. Stock is somewhere in like the 23 range. And then on my 17, I have some GMD ones. I think those are around 10mm offset. And the ones on my 07 are TriStar, which they don't make them anymore. But Sean Butterman's got triple clamps that are really good quality. He's a racer. You can hit him up if you need triples. Also Peter Cates at GMD CompuTrack was doing triples. I'm not sure if he still is, but he's a good source and he's local and he's a racer, so it makes sense. But there's some other companies out there like X-Trig. I know X-Trig definitely makes them for the KTM, and therefore the Husqvarna and the Gas, and they're a variable offset like a 13 and a 16mm. So there's options out there. Triples isn't something that's like detrimental, like you need them, but if you find yourself like getting a little bit twitchy or you can't really turn the bike and you've done your suspension work, try a set of triple clamps, you know, it might help you. Or if you have just a shit ton of money to piss away, just go ahead and buy some triple clamps and, you know, other goodies and bolt them on. Or if you don't have a lot of money and you just want some credit card debt like I did for the first 10 years, buy all kinds of shit you don't need because you're not fast enough for it yet. But anyway, definitely not a lecture. It's a fun sport. You should buy whatever you want within your means. Triples isn't one of the things you need, is the point, but you can if you want, and there's options out there. Alright, so chain guide back on the swing arm, and this hole is supposed to be there, is all buggered out. I don't know if someone drove a screw in there or a bolt that wasn't supposed to be in there, but that hole's pretty well effed. So I've never had good luck putting helicoils in this aluminum because it's just too thin. So riv nut is going to be the next best thing, but I don't have any riv nuts. So I'm going to have to make a trip to the hardware store and get a riv nut gun and some riv nuts. I've been meaning to buy one. I haven't got one, so this will be a good excuse. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep working on the front of the bike, and we'll take these hoses off the radiators, and we'll get these mounted back up and get the new hoses on. I hope they all come off that easy. Okay, the radiators are loosely mounted on. I left them loose so that we can get the hoses on. If we have to move stuff around and it's tight, we won't be able to do that. So let's get the hoses on. Alright, there's that side lower one on. Alright, so the hoses are all on. Everything went together nice. These GPI hoses, they're really nice, and they're not that expensive. They're pretty cheap. I can't remember what I paid for them, but they're not crazy like the CB4 ones are pretty expensive. But I've never had a problem with them. So they work good, they look good. Put a little bit of silicone spray on the hoses. They'll slide right on. Be a lot easier getting them off. They flex a little bit better, they resist cracking, they're better at dispersing heat, just way to go. So now I'll go around and I'll tighten up all these hose clamps and make sure they're all good to go, and then we'll secure the rest of the radiators down. Alright, now all the hoses are tightened. I'm going to finish tightening down the radiators. Alright, radiators are all tightened down. I'm going to gather up all the old hoses and put them in the bag the new ones came in. And they can go with the new owner of the bike, so they have a spare set of radiator hoses. I think I'm going to call it for tonight. Got Supercross coming on, Daytona, and I need to go get riv nut guns. So I think that's it for tonight. We made pretty good progress though. I got the motors all mounted in with the hardware torqued down. Swing arm is on. Modifications done. Bearings are done. Everything's greased. Radiators on with the new hoses. I think we're doing good. So, parts table's getting smaller. That's a good thing. So I think that's going to be it for tonight. So we'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.